Welcome back to this edition of World Talks with me, Anna Kalczyńska. Good morning again. 10 EU countries are pushing for a ban on Russian liquefied natural gas. The EU countries involved want to close any existing loopholes and take away Russia's ability to profit on the sale of LNG to Europe. The 16th sanctions package under the Polish presidency is expected to be harsh, though it will likely be opposed by Hungary and Slovakia, both of whose leaders are aligned with the Kremlin. Is it possible to act without the two pro-Moscow allies' consent? How does Russia get to still earn billions of euros to finance its war of attrition? Why is it even possible in the light of tougher sanctions? To discuss this, I'm joined by Slawomir Raszewski, senior oil and gas lecturer at the University of London. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us. Russia has reportedly earned 200 billion euros from selling oil and gas to the EU since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. We all understand it's necessary to ban the import of Russian gas at the earliest date possible. Yet the EU roadmap is to eliminate any dependency on Russia by 2027. So at this pace, the war in Ukraine might be over. What does it take so long for the European leaders to diversify their energy imports?
Well, the decision of the European Union has been very slow, and indeed, if you look back at the start of the war in Ukraine back in 2022, we have seen several attempts, but it hasn't really taken place, and up until now, liquefied natural gas hasn't been included in the sanction package. This is largely to do with dependence of the European Union on imported fossil fuels. European Union is the leading block of importers of fossil fuels around the world, and it's very difficult to shrug off the dependence on imported natural gas. While the Nord Stream 2 and part of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was sabotaged at some point, which negated imports from using that pipeline. What we saw, in fact, was increase in imports via alternative routes, particularly LNG, but also through supply from Turk Stream from Russia via Turkish territory. So what we have seen, in fact, is a steady increase of LNG. And indeed, this is troubling for the European Union.
But is it even doable? Let's discuss this in the first place. Can Europe rely solely on different gas production than Russian and reject the Eastern route forever?
Well, at the moment, we already seen quite a symbolic change because on the 1st of January, we no longer have imports via Ukrainian territory. It should be noted that Ukrainian territory was used as a transit for natural gas imports throughout the conflict and until the contract for imports expired. Is it possible? Well, the world has limits as to where you can import from. We have witnessed, in fact, over the last 2 years, increase of liquefied natural gas production in Qatar, but we have to understand that Qatar supplies LNG to several other places around the world. So there's a growing competition, if you like, and we have seen this competition after 2022 invasion. More and more nations have switched to natural gas. I mean, our neighboring country, Germany, who never had liquefied natural gas receiving terminals, actually managed to build one at a very short notice just to start diversifying away from Russia in the face of the conflict and the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. So I think that there are limitations as to where you can take natural gas from. We have seen increase of production in Qatar, and Qatar has committed itself to increase production. But of course, there's a global competition, if you like, for the sources from places like Qatar.
Well, since you mentioned Germany, the AfD, which comes second in the polls ahead of the German elections, for the time being is not seriously considered to be able to have the coalition potential to form a government. But its leader, Alice Weidel, quite openly claims that Germany should come back to Nord Stream 2 and this pipeline should be operational again. So how likely the policy of coming back to business as usual is possible, according to you?
Well, it's difficult to imagine at this point that this may happen, but we don't know exactly what type of policies will be in place going forward. We have to take into account the so-called Trump effect. We have President Trump being elected as next president of the US, who may have a different policy approach to Russia. Some sanctions might be lifted, but we shall see. This is very much uncertain. But we also see in Germany a very much change in politics, and this German economy has been very much hit by a lack of supplies from Russia. Now, it's difficult to say, but we have to remember that out of the four strings of Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines, one is still intact and can be operational. Indeed, this is what the Russian authorities have been mentioned. Of course, this is, again, hard to imagine that Europe could come back to business as usual, but you never know. This is politics.
Exactly. So coming back to politics now, if the whole of EU would resign from importing the Russian gas, what scale would such a blow have on the Russian economy?
Well, natural gas is one thing, but I would say probably oil is here more important. In fact, this is why we have witnessed these sanctions on oil companies by the US government. Can the EU ban imports of natural gas from Russia altogether? I mean, they can do that, but we have seen that previously, that there are all sorts of interesting schemes that are put in place to manage exports anyway. And in fact, if you look at Turk Stream pipeline, which is a pipeline connecting Russia to the Turkish territory and from Turkey onwards to the Balkan countries, we have witnessed increase exports for this pipeline. In fact, they're beyond the capacity of the pipeline itself. So it is very likely that we are going to see increase of exports via third countries. So that's what may happen. Indeed, with oil, by the way, if I may, this also has been the case. We have seen exports via third countries. We have seen increase of exports from oil to India, for instance. So, this is just probably going to make things more difficult operationally for Russian exporters. But can you really kind of ban it completely? Possibly. I think the European Union is trying to change the price cap on oil on Russia. I'm not sure to what extent it's going to materialize, but there are some talks about that at the moment.
We have just shown to our viewers a map of Turk pipeline, which connects Russia and Turkey, and it's another route for getting the gas to Europe. Yesterday, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the US of sabotaging the last pipeline carrying Russian gas to EU by inciting the Ukrainian attacks on Russia. So Moscow says Ukraine tried to attack Nord Stream infrastructure. How likely is this, according to you?
Well, I mean, there were reports about drone attacks on Turk Stream natural gas pipeline, and there are reports about military activities on both sides in this place. I'm not sure exactly how successful it has been, because the reports are not very clear. But we have to understand that in absence of transit via the Ukrainian territory due to the expiration of the import contract, I think there's likely to be more focus on alternative supply routes that have remained. And you have to understand that Turk Stream is the last pipeline here that can bring gas from Russia to the Balkans, and in this context, particularly to Moldova. I think this is something which has been very much on the agenda at the moment.
Okay, so who would be affected if this pipeline would be damaged?
Well, if this pipeline is damaged, Turkey in the first place is going to be damaged. You have to understand that Turkey is a major importer of natural gas, and I don't want to speculate because this is purely speculation, but that would be a very serious blow to Turkey in the first place.
All right. Slawomir Raszewski, Senior Lecturer at Oil and Gas University in London, thank you so much for being with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks, but please stay tuned to TVP World as news are coming.